There are times when the deepest wounds don't come from enemies, but from those we once held closest. Why does a son humiliate his mother? This question doesn't just fracture families. It reveals something dark and unspoken within the human psyche. In this video, we explore the psychology behind this painful dynamic. Through the lens of Carl Jung and psychoanalysis, we'll uncover how unconscious conflict, cultural pressure, and shadow elements shape this destructive behavior. By the end, you'll not only understand the psychological roots, but also gain a deeper clarity on the complexity of love, guilt, and emotional entanglement. Let's begin with a truth Jung once stated. What we fight in others is often what we refuse to see in ourselves. When a grown son degrades his mother, it's rarely just impatience or frustration. It's a recurring pattern rooted deep in the unconscious. This cruelty is not born of distance, but of unresolved emotional closeness. To the son, the mother is not merely a person, she is an archetype. She symbolizes origin, security, and dependence. So when he attacks her, he's not fighting a single individual. He's battling the memory of his own helplessness, neediness, and early vulnerability. Humiliation, in this case, becomes the language of a pain that never found proper words. Imagine a child who never learned to express the storm of feelings toward his mother. That child grows into a man who can only express through distance, anger, and destruction. Overwhelming love turns to rage. Gratitude becomes resentment. Longing for closeness transforms into cold rejection. This becomes especially visible when the mother shows weakness, when she ages, when she's unwell, when she needs help. The roles reverse. The once dependent son becomes powerful. But instead of offering compassion, he unconsciously seeks revenge for the years he felt powerless, bound to her. Jung observed that we often attack what mirrors our own fragility. A mother's love and pride remind the son that he owes much of his identity to her. And this evokes guilt, a guilt so unbearable it transforms into hostility. The humiliation of the mother becomes at its core an attempt to reject that dependence. But this never brings freedom. Each act of cruelty toward her is also an act against the self, a denial of the child who once adored her. Freud might say that repression is at play. The son represses his love because it threatens his image of strength. What's buried comes back, not as love, but as aggression. Often, this manifests as projection. The son projects his own fears, shame, and unmet needs onto his mother. He accuses her of being too needy when he hasn't learned to set boundaries. He calls her manipulative while he's unable to express vulnerability. Over time, Jung's concept of the shadow helps us understand this. The son attacks his mother's emotional nature because he fears his own. He mocks her care because he cannot face his own longing. The tragedy lies in the fact that this conflict is still, in essence, a bond. He hasn't truly separated from her emotionally. Aggression becomes a warped version of attachment. This reveals another layer, the fear of individuation. Jung defined individuation as becoming one's true self, a journey that requires emotionally separating from one's parents. But the son who humiliates his mother hasn't made that journey. He's stuck in an adolescent rebellion, one that never matured into real autonomy. He tries to prove his independence by degrading her, when in truth, he's still bound to her psychologically. and the mother becomes a tragic figure. She may have devoted. Sometimes she can't let go. Sometimes she clings to her identity as mother because she doesn't know who she is without it. Jung believed every toxic pattern is co-created unconsciously. A mother who allows repeated humiliation may, in her own way, reinforce it, believing that suffering is the price of connection. She may confuse self-sacrifice with devotion. But this sacrifice only feeds the son's contempt, showing him that power lies in disrespect. A person who doesn't respect themselves teaches others to do the same. A mother with no boundaries unintentionally raises a son who will trample them. Here lies the heartbreaking complexity. Both are trapped in patterns they cannot see. The son fights an image of his mother that may no longer exist. The mother continues loving a son who sees her love as weakness. This pattern often spans generations. A son who humiliates may have watched his father do the same. Likewise, a mother who accepts humiliation may have never learned to stand in her own worth. The cycle repeats until someone becomes conscious. Another critical piece of this dynamic is the narcissistic wound. As the son faces his own inadequacies, the mother becomes a threat because she witnessed him at his weakest. She knows his fears, his tears, his childhood helplessness. In a world where men are taught to be stoic and self-contained, this history becomes unbearable. He no longer sees her as a nurturing figure, but as someone who threatens his carefully built identity. So he lashes out, not at her, but at the part of himself she reflects. This shadow persona conflict is at the heart of the pain. He wears a mask of strength, but she reminds him of the truth beneath it. Cultural norms worsen this rift. Society rarely allows men to express tenderness, especially toward their mothers. Affection is shamed. Emotional openness is labeled weakness. Thus, the son learns to assert masculinity by rejecting softness. Humiliating the mother becomes a twisted form of self-assertion. But this strategy backfires, especially when the mother grows old or ill. Her vulnerability reflects his future, his aging, his decline. Instead of facing this truth, he punishes her for showing it. Freud said we hate what we fear, and so the mother becomes a scapegoat for his dread of mortality. The tragedy intensifies in silence. Calls go unanswered. Visits stop. Messages are left unread. Technology, rather than connecting them, becomes a weapon of distance. This quiet cruelty leaves the mother in a state of endless uncertainty. Jung would say this points to a mother complex. The son may be emotionally fused with her, never having become his own person. Or he may have built a wall so thick he fears any emotional closeness at all. In both cases, he never found the balance between connection and autonomy. He oscillates between suffocating closeness and cold rejection. The mother, meanwhile, may have built her entire identity on being needed. Without that role, she feels lost. Yet her tolerance of mistreatment only keeps the pattern alive. Her silence teaches him that cruelty is allowed. Jung insisted that only by integrating the shadow can we heal. For the son, this means facing his fragility, no longer running from it. True strength is the ability to sit with vulnerability, not escape it through violence. For the mother, it means stepping into her worth beyond motherhood, setting boundaries, reclaiming dignity, choosing self-respect over silent suffering. Healing begins with truth. The son must admit his cruelty reflects his own unhealed wounds. The mother must recognize martyrdom is not love, it's fear. This mutual awareness is the first step out of the shadow. Because where there is destruction, there is also the potential for rebirth. Carl Jung said, "The greatest treasures are hidden in the darkest places of our soul." This dynamic, this heartbreak between mother and son, is also a call to transform. If the son integrates his shadow, he can become strong and compassionate. If the mother reclaims herself, she can love without losing herself. The path to healing is not easy. It demands courage, honesty, and the willingness to face one's own reflection in the other. So the real question is not why does a son humiliate his mother, but rather, how can both rise from the shadow into the light? If this message touched something within you, whether as a son or as a mother, know this: change is possible, and it begins with awareness. Behind every cruel act, there is often a wounded soul longing to be seen. Jung reminded us, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Close quote. So reflect, share your thoughts in the comments, and if you found value in this video, subscribe to Stoic Trench, where we dive into the psyche and help bring light to the unseen. Because only through understanding our darkness can we truly begin to heal.